When God talks about himself being the God of encouragement, the God of paraklesis, he means something far more real than that. I want to show it to you. About 1200 BC, the Israelites were trying to move into the land of Canaan. There were already all kinds of people there. Amalekites, you know them. Jebusites, all those ites that we all read about in Sunday school. They were all there. And they just swooped down on the Israelites to wipe them out. That was the situation. In this particular event, where God shows himself as the God of encouragement, there were 135,000 of the others. There were 135,000 of the other peoples. And there were under Gideon 32,000. Now, I know I should really put it on the screen, but there were 135,000 of the enemy and 32,000 of the Israelites. That was 1 to 4. To 4. 1 to 4. It was a 1 to 4 ratio. It was too close for God's comfort. And I want you to connect this up with your own situations. 1 to 4, that is 1 Israelite against 4 of the enemy. That was too close for God's comfort. That means it was too close for God to make his comfort real. In other words, God saw that as something, well, you might be able to handle that out with your own ability. You might be able to handle that with your own strength. In other words, it was too close to man being able to do it on his own. And of course, what God does in that situation is lengthen the odds. So let's look at it. Just look at, it's Joshua, I think, and Judges, and chapter 7 and verse 2. Judges chapter 7 and verse 2. And that, loved ones, is page 214 in that Revised Standard Version. 214. And it's Judges chapter 7 and verse 2. Now there were 135,000 Israelites, 135,000 of the enemy, and there were 32,000 Israelites. So 1 Israelite to 4 of the enemy. And Judges 7 verse 2, the Lord said to Gideon, the people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand. Too many. Lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, my own hand has delivered me. I mean, there were 4 enemy against 1 Israelite, and yet God says, no, it's too close. You might be able to do that by your own strength and your own power. I want you to keep remembering your own situations, you know. The financial situations, the family situations that you're in, the job problems that you have, the things that you think you're never going to win on. Do you see God's approach to it? He has to make the odds so long that only his encouragement will be able to do anything about it. He specializes in impossible situations. That's what he's at here. The Lord said to Gideon, the people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, my own hand has delivered me. Now therefore, proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home. And Gideon tested them. 22,000 returned and 10,000 remained. The odds were lengthened considerably. He had now 10,000 people left to fight against 135,000. It was now 1 to 12. Would you stop being worried? Because it doesn't look to you as if you'll be able to get through this situation? Would you stop that? Would you begin to see that God operates that way? God doesn't come in with his comfort in some situation that you can handle yourself anyway with a little bit of luck. He comes in and he specializes in situations where the odds are so long that it's impossible. It was now 1 to 12, and yet that was still too close for God's comfort. God knew 1 to 12, no, they might still think that they won by their own strength, and so he lengthens the odds even more. Verse 4, and the Lord said to Gideon, The people are still too many. And you can imagine old Gideon wanted 12, Lord, and too many? Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. And he of whom I say to you, this man shall go with you, shall go with you. And any of whom I say to you, this man shall not go with you, shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water. And the Lord said to Gideon, every one that laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you shall set by himself. Likewise every one that kneels down to drink. And the number of those that lapped, putting their hands to their mouths, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people knelt down to drink water. And the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will deliver you, and give the Midianites into your hand, and let all the others go, every man to his home. Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. 300 against 135,000. Actually, the ratio, I worked it out on the adding machine, is 1 to 437. So it's one Israelite has to kill 437 of the others. And that's the way they go to battle. And there in chapter 7 and verse 20, and the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars, holding in their left hands the torches and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. They stood every man in his place round about the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. And that's it, loved ones. That's God's encouragement. God is the God of encouragement because he acts on behalf of any man or woman that acts in the light of his nature, being the God of encouragement. That's it. God is the God of encouragement because he acts on behalf of any man or woman who themselves act in the light of the fact that God's nature is the God of encouragement. In other words, Gideon acted in the absolute assurance that God's words of encouragement and directives would be backed up by God's action. That's what it means in the Bible when it says God is the God of encouragement. It does not mean God stands back and says to Gideon, well, it doesn't really matter if they beat you here. I mean, maybe you'll win the next time. That's not encouragement. Nor is it Gideon wamping himself up into a sudden pitch of power of positive thinking onto which he holds by his fingertips just and no more so that God can do something. It isn't that. And it isn't Gideon looking at the thing with his binocs and saying, yeah, I think I can make it. They look a bit weak on that side, and they look, and the wind's blowing the right way. Yeah, I think. It's not Gideon looking at the natural circumstances and thinking, well, it may come about anyway. See, that isn't God's encouragement. God's encouragement is something deep. It is a deep assurance of a man that God is going to act to back up his own directives and promises that he has given to you. It is a deep assurance that God will act.